We've got Teens vs. Aliens, Musicians vs. the Machine, and Justin Roiland vs. Hulu on this episode of the Hour of the Wolf Reviews. Welcome to the Hour of the Wolf Reviews. I'm Dan Persons. This is a spin-off of Jim Freund's Hour of the Wolf, which airs most weeks on WBAI 99.5 FM in New York. And this week, it's going to be a pretty full show. I'm going to play you the review of the Inuit alien invasion film Slashback, which originally aired on Hour of the Wolf, and then we're going to be talking with the film's director, Nyla Innuksuk, to get a better insight into the film. Plus, I'm going to throw in a couple of capsule reviews just for fun. So first things first, here's my review of Slashback as it originally aired. Hour of the Wolf Review, air date October 24th, 2022, Slashback. Take 3. I'm Dan Persons, and this is my Hour of the Wolf Review. The new film, Slashback, which is now in theaters and also available on demand, features what must be the most awkward and accurate depiction of a teen party ever portrayed on screen, which basically is a bunch of kids sitting around a living room, not really talking to each other. Not for nothing, director and co-writer Nyla Innuksuk has strived to capture something painfully recognizable about how kids on the cusp of adulthood interact, in particular teen girls. And in this particular moment, she's resoundingly successful. And then the aliens invade, and nothing remains quite that prosaic. Slashback takes the concept of Attack the Block, and in some ways the most recent Predator sequel, Prey, in which an alien incursion occurs in an unexpected environment, and transfers it north, way north, to the small Inuit village of Inuksuk, placing at its center a quartet of teen girls, played by Tatiana Shirley, Alexis Wolf, Nalajos Ellsworth, and Chelsea Prusky. There's the usual teenage stuff, 2 of the girls crush on the same boy, possibly because he owns his own Honda ATV, and bits that are bracingly more specific. The girls' private retreat is on a distant patch of open and ravishingly beautiful wilderness, and their dreams of escape center around the urban hotbed that is Winnipeg. I know nothing about Winnipeg, maybe it is that great. And when the body snatchers scenario kicks in, claiming a small handful of adults, it's a low-budget film after all. It's the kids who have to pull together and rely on the tools available, which fortunately includes a high-powered rifle, to push back the invaders. The acting is occasionally a little stiff, and not all of the special effects land, although the writhing tendrils that emerge from the possessed to claim their next victim are pretty creepy. The character interactions, though, are refreshing, and for all that this is supposed to be an overall lighthearted exercise, Innuksuk isn't afraid to pull in a surprisingly dark horror trope when the occasion calls for it. Slashback takes a standard SF scenario and reimagines it in a hitherto unexplored environment. It's a fun, creepy adventure. For Hour of the Wolf, I'm Dan Persons. So there you go. And coming up will be my discussion with director Nyla Innuksuk about the film. But first, this break. So here are a couple of other releases that you might be interested in. In the new documentary, The Computer Accent, which is now playing at the Metrograph and will be getting around to other cities through October and November, the lead singer of the electro-punk band Yacht, Claire Evans, has a couple of interesting insights. In 2017, she and her bandmates decided to turn the creative process of their next album from music to lyrics to art, over to various AI systems. They resolve to follow as closely as possible the dictates of the machine, which becomes problematic when what lands in their hands is not necessarily something that human musicians are capable of replicating. But at one moment, Evans notes that they were always saying they were going to be collaborating with the computer, and succumbing your will to the dictates of another is no one's definition of collaboration. Later in the film, in delivering an address on the creation of the album, Evans notes that AI, which essentially takes material that already exists and synthesizes something new out of it, doesn't actually show us the future, but allows us through that synthesis to understand the past. And the film, directed by Sebastian Pardo and Riel Roche-Decter, is a fascinating exploration of how the band sets out to discover the future and instead rediscovers their past. I'd never heard anything by Yacht before, but I'm glad I took this journey with them. And Justin Roiland has a new special up on Hulu, the PALONI Show Halloween Special, which I guess is supposed to be a backdoor pilot for something called the PALONI Show, but functions as a collection of short horror comedy films from a variety of contributors, including a few recognizable names from Adult Swim. And it starts out very Justin Roiland in his Solar Opposites vein, but gains momentum as it goes. My favorite entry comes midway through with a film called Bet It Was Becca, in which a partygoer bobbing for apples goes through some brilliantly, grotesquely animated mutations. And it has a great punchline as well. The entire show is worth it just for that. Okay, enough of that. Slashback's Nyla Innuksuk is coming right up in a couple. Stay tuned. Let me just make this quick. How do you pronounce Pangnirtung? Did I get that right?
Oh, that's you could. Way to say it. Pangnirtung is one way to say it. Pangnuktu, Pangnuktu, and a lot of people just call it Pang.
Pang, yeah, I heard that. But Pangnirtung, that would be good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Pangnuktu.
Okay. I'm sorry.
Pangnuktu is
Pangnuktu. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There you go.
So, tell me about the film industry in Pangnuktu.
Yeah, well, in the community of Pang, there's never been a feature-length movie made before. So this was this really kind of ambitious undertaking. And we'd actually been told by producers down south, and really we just call anywhere that's not the Arctic down south, and that filming in this community was essentially impossible, just given the lack of infrastructure and stuff like that. And they were basically right. It was really, really challenging, but we really had to have the community on board with helping us make this movie. And the Indigenous kind of screen community is really strong within Canada. And I had these amazing Nunavut-based producers, Alethea Arnold-Cook-Brill, who's a fantastic documentary filmmaker, and Stacey Avok McDonald, who's an amazing producer who works out of Iqaluit Nunavut. They were kind of on my team as well. So really kind of utilizing the talent up in Nunavut to help make the movie. Did
you shoot on digital?
We did. Yeah.
Okay.
This is a little indie Canadian movie.
Yeah. And how? One of the things I did notice in the film was that a lot of the windows were covered with like sheets and stuff like that. So I take it the day cycle is rather radical where you are. Is that correct?
Yeah. Sorry, are you talking about in the movie?
Well, I'm talking about just general in that area. How far north are you? What are the days?
Yeah. it is very, very far north in the Arctic, and so in the summertime, there's 24-hour sunlight. When in June, the sun kind of sets up and then just never, it just kind of hovers around the horizon for 11 days. And then the days get, these long, long days get shorter and shorter until the winter. And then there's 24-hour sunlight. And then it's obviously much colder as well. And the community itself, some of the houses are actually like, bolted to the ground, like with chains and stuff, because it's so windy that the houses can really shake around. But the houses are also built on these stilts, and that's because the ground is permafrost, permanently frozen, and it's hard to make houses up there. So you have to actually dig these stilts like way deep into the ground, going through the permafrost into the ground in order to build houses, which is why you get kind of houses kind of a little bit above the ground.
Just curious. So if your DP said we should wait until golden hour, were you like, yeah, good luck, or is it all golden hour?
Yeah, well, it's closer to mostly being always golden hour in the summertime, because the sun, it really does kind of circle around. Obviously, it circles around in different directions. There's mountains. The community itself is in this, like, in the valley of so after a certain hour, there it kind of becomes shadow. So that was something to kind of and also, having a movie set over the course of one day. When it's majority filmed outside, regardless of where you are, it's going to be a bit of a challenge. But Pang was unique in the sense that it's so windy, the weather's always doing something different, the clouds are always doing something crazy. So it was what I realized, and what I didn't realize at the beginning, was that I gave myself so many different fun challenges throughout.
Fun in quotes, maybe.
Yeah, absolutely. Tearing my hair out.
Did the setting shape your story in any way? Was there anything about the setting that really affected how you told the story, or the story that you told?
Yeah, I think, the community of Pang is so special. I myself am from a different community, Igloolik, that's about the same size, but it's also a fishing community on the water. Igloolik is an island. My nephews are from Pang, which is just such a beautiful community that's nestled in the middle of these gigantic fjords. And it itself was settled as a whaling community first. And a lot of the communities in the Arctic were settled through colonization with the Canadian government and creation of communities that way. With Pang, and there was also just different Arctic communities that existed. And then, but Pang has this long history of whaling, and I had actually first kind of come across this community because I had heard about this tradition of square dancing that exists in town, and that these dances and songs, accordion and fiddle music that was passed down from the Scottish whalers to people in Pang in the 1800s, and they would leave their accordions and fiddles in the community and learn these and teach these dances. And there's lots of people in town really light blue eyes, and so these dances are considered, Inuit tradition. And that I made a little documentary about this kind of what I thought was this beautiful little tradition within the community of Pang, and then totally fell in love with this place. And then my nephews are from here as well, and they're about 5 and 7 years old now. And this idea of being able to make a movie that was this kind of alien invasion movie set in their hometown was something that seemed like a lot of fun.
What about the monster? Is there any cultural connection to the way you defined your monster?
I don't know if it was in the way we defined the monster. I think that I really was just, I love aliens and this idea. And but I think also just growing up in a place where, I think everyone has scary children's stories or children's stories that are cautionary tales. Hansel and Gretel and that sort of thing. And we have those stories too, of course. But then we also have all of these, because the environment in the Arctic is so dangerous. We have these really terrifying children's stories that we also are raised with. And then it's also kind of told to us with this added layer of magic that it kind of is part of real life. And so we have elders that will tell stories of being nearly captured by the Khalupilui, these creatures that live underneath the ice and steal children. And so it's just this kind of magical place to grow up. And so I think kind of having this alien invasion movie that's set in this place where there's already kind of these stories of threats was just kind of fun. And as I was developing the script with my co-writer Ryan Cavan and the girls, and we were just hanging out and playing games, it just it became clear that these kinds of stories are just part of conversation and would definitely be something that they would think of when they encountered aliens.
Mm-hmm. Did your actors, the teenage girls, did they participate in shaping the story as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Some more than others. Some kind of got brought into the process after the script had been written. I had developed the idea and first created this proof of concept, a little kind of short film that would give a sense of tone and the idea of what the movie would be, seeing as I hadn't directed anything before and was working with these actors that had never acted before. And so in that process, I found Alexis, who plays Jessie, who's the girl with the bandana, and Chelsea, who plays Lena, and Nyla who plays Uki, was playing the little sister who gets taken. She kind of grew up at one point. I thought she had grown out of the movie, and then I realized like, oh, she could maybe be one of the older girls, and so kind of moved her into that role, and it worked out. But the role she had played in the proof of concept was filled by Alexis's little sister, who I just found one day when I was picking up Alexis. And so the kids and hanging out with the kids in the making of the proof of concept, and then later in the development of the script, my co-writer and I would spend time just going out on boats and going to cabins and hanging out with these kids and hear them talking endlessly about boys and drama. And so those kinds of things definitely kind of found their way into the script.
Mm-hmm. I'll admit something. There was one of the things that caught me up is early on in the film, I think the character is Micah. She goes into her home and picks up a rifle that's nearly as big as she is. Was that Micah?
Yeah.
Am I good? Yeah. Okay. So Micah does that, and being the East Coast liberal that I am, I went, an armed teenager. And
yeah.
But I guess that isn't all that unusual.
No. No, and I think, I mean, I would say that having a rifle out just like that is unusual, especially if you have kids around. And I think that really just speaks to Micah's the kind of independence and stuff that she's given, for better or worse. Mm-hmm. But I think being able to shoot a rifle, that's something, and going out hunting is something that a lot of these girls do with their families and have been kind of grown up with. So yeah, someone like Alexis who showed up to our South by Southwest premiere in Texas with these like huge, it looked like burns on her face, and what it was frostbite from having gone polar bear tracking. Ooh. And last week Chelsea asked for a press kind of interview to be shifted because she was going caribou hunting. So it's like these girls are able to kind of like hold their own with a gun and a rifle and drive boats and that sort of thing. Wow. Which is kind of fun to kind of showcase.
What did you want to capture about being a teenager in like these small towns?
Yeah, I think that it's such an interesting time, and it was such a fun experience getting to work with these kids as they were kind of growing up alongside the movie and figuring out who they were. And for me, as just to be reflecting on that time of my life and thinking about what it was like for me as a teenager growing up. And you kind of are figuring out, trying out different things to see what works and what fits. And for me, movies were a big part of that. So it was nice to kind of be going full circle and be working with these kids and working with this movie. And then also just seeing the ways in which identity and our indigeneity plays a role in that, and the levels of shame we might have to overcome in order to kind of get to the point of being really proud of where we're from and who we are, and getting to kind of work through some of that with the girls, and then also see them kind of be growing up and being so proud of where they come from, and getting to share this movie has been really special.
So this was your debut feature, and I gather you were essentially cutting your teeth on filmmaking, or not too far away from cutting your teeth on filmmaking overall. Is that?
Oh gosh, it was like every single day was a million lessons learned. It was crazy. It was and certainly now that I kind of have a better understanding of what it is to make a movie, I can't believe that I chose such an ambitious project but I am also so grateful to kind of have this as this learning experience, and to be and to also the girls. It's been great. Like we talked about it last week, and they're like, oh, she could do it again because you do such a better job. And it's like, I think that's so sweet. But then at the same time, it's just like, we just have to take what we've learned and try and get better and be proud of what we've done. And that's also one of the great things about working with young people is I'm getting to say these things to them and mean it. And then, hearing myself say it, I'm like, oh yeah, I should be proud of myself, and just remember that it's like, all of this is hopefully you can take what you can learn some hard lessons and really kind of sit in these uncomfortable moments and then try and get better.
Nyla, thank you very much for speaking with us.
Thank you.
Okay, that's it. Just remember, if you love science fiction, fantasy, and enchantment, you should be listening to Hour of the Wolf with Jim Freund, which airs most Mondays at 9 p.m. on WBAI 99.5 FM in New York, or streaming on iHeartRadio and WBAI.org. And the show's archives are at the website as well. I'm Dan Persons, your host and producer. The show was recorded at the studios of Upstart Company. The theme music is by Johnny Holiday, licensed through Creative Commons. This has been an Hour of the Wolf production. Remember, democracy is at stake. Please vote. See you next week.